Hello and welcome to SHOWstudio. Couture Autumn-Winter 18 is in full bloom. We're going to talk Giambattista Valli today, and I have a very opinionated panel of ladies, so I guess these are the only words you will hear from me today, and I would like them to introduce themselves.
Oh, I hate this bit. I'm Grace Woodward, and I'm like a jack of all trades in fashion, stylist, fashion commentator, writer, and at the moment I'm being a provocateur.
Good.
So we'll touch on that later.
I'm Rosanna Falconer, and I'm a digital consultant and co-founder of Fashmash.
My name is Lottie Anderson, and I'm an artist.
I'm Deborah Milner, and I'm a couture designer.
So it's great, we have digital expertise, we have a commentator, an artist and a couture designer. Perfect panel to discuss Giambattista Valli. Giambattista Valli, as everybody knows, made his name first with Ungaro as head of atelier and then creative director of the ready-to-wear line. He got noticed at that time in Paris. He's Roman, but he's been working and living in Paris for now many years. And then he launched his line, and if I'm not mistaken, he started with couture. So he launched at the high level, and then launched his ready-to-wear line and his second line, Giamba by Giambattista. I still think that his strength is couture. He has this flair for big gowns or short, very beautiful dresses, and he's often mentions like the one who rejuvenated couture. So he caters for a younger audience, all these beautiful, rich and famous girls from especially Europe that are in their late 20s, early 30s are wearing Giambattista Valli, and they're always sitting at his front row. And obviously, and we will see immediately in this show, he thinks about them when he designs. And I was listening to an interview last night where he was saying, I don't have a muse. I love women, and all women are my muse. So I was looking at pictures of famous people wearing his couture, and they're so different. They go from a 22 years old or 28 years old Rihanna to Michelle Obama via Jennifer Lopez. I mean, it's very different women to these European girls. So he really designs for women. He's very French in his style, yet there is an Italian heritage. He often mentions artists from Italy as his inspiration. And yeah, and he believes in beauty. He says, I want to do something beautiful, no matter what, but it has to be beautiful, it has to be feminine, it has to be grand. And I think that's what he does best. So before looking at the show, I would like to have your take in general on Giambattista Valli.
It's funny you mentioned the art thing because Alexander Fury, who is a big 90s Dior fan, paralleled him with a Monet painting. So i.e. from far away, it looks very pretty, but when you go up close, it's a bit detail-less. And I thought, wow, that's really savage. It's really hard.
He said that about Giambattista?
Yeah.
I didn't read that.
And I think that it depends what you want from couture. A lot of real hardcore fashion critics, perhaps, are always looking for fashion to change something. But I think in couture, you see the flights of fancy, and actually, couture clients don't really want to change anything. They don't necessarily want to push boundaries.
Totally agree.
They just want to look great.
But I think,
and they want the perfect make.
But I think that was, I might be wrong, but I think that that's what Alexander was saying, that the finish wasn't couture when you went up close. I don't know, because I haven't seen any of his couture close up, so that might not be the case, but I think that's what he was trying to say.
But someone this morning, I think it was in Vogue, I don't remember who, but anyway, they were talking about the first look that we will see in a minute, which is like this top in a shape of a bow and a naked midriff and then trousers, that they look so simple from far, but then they were saying when you were looking at them from close, the detail was quite amazing. So I'm now a bit confused because I haven't seen them from close, so I can't judge.
Yeah, me too, I haven't.
I think he's at an interesting transition point because of the investment in his company this time last year from Pinot. Do you say the Artemis is arm of the family?
It's the financial
arm of
head
the family.
Of, Kering. So it's not Kering, but it's above. It's the Pinot family.
So now with this minority stake, they're saying they want to make this 360 brand, and there is an expansion into athleisure that just launched last month, which seems a bit, it didn't seem to be a natural fit for me, but then now when you see the first look you were just mentioning, it seems to even be going into the couture side of things, that ready-to-wear take on couture, and this very youthful take on couture. Personally, nothing's ever beaten autumn-winter 2014, the pyjama tops, the little turbans, and the huge tulle. For me, that's the best couture scene I've ever seen. Yeah, that's my take on it.
What do you think, Lottie?
I mean, I feel like just looking at these initial looks, I cannot imagine athleisure. I didn't know that he'd launched that and in fact, can we get some pictures of it?
Can we see?
Just because these are so frothy, so feminine, and when I think of any kind of like designer athleisure wear, I think of it as being really like streamline and sexy and
logos
kind of minimal,
famously
anti-logo.
Saying he's anti-logo.
Yeah.
And what was the quote? It's so good.
Oh, to be known for your silhouette.
Right, it's harder to be known for your silhouette
brand.
rather than your logo, which I think is cheap.
I mean, it's true.
But it's very true that usually you recognize a Giambattista Valli.
Yeah.
That's true, yes.
Here, a little bit less, I think. It comes at the end, these signature huge amount of tulle and color dresses, which I think are fantastic. We were discussing before the start. I mean, there's some looks that I look from close in the pictures and I think they're amazing, but if I look at the collection overall and tell me if I'm wrong, I don't really see one focused decision, if you see what I mean. There's a lot of everything.
Which probably plays to the clients, I guess, if he has such a diverse client.
Yeah, if you're going from a 50, I don't know how old Michelle Obama is, but you know, let's say 50 plus to 20 plus, there's got to be something for everybody in there.
Yeah, it does look odd though when you start looking at the whole thing.
So do you agree with me?
Yeah. You've got like a Nehru collar and then you've got like cutouts.
Sometimes,
and then you've got
images
neon
aren't shot
pink.
in order.
Yeah.
We have to remember that. This might not be the running order because you know in a show that they can sometimes come
but I've
like
seen the
this,
video.
and this is the running order.
It's kind of cool. It's just like pick a mix.
The only line I can see running through is the flashes of skin. So either the mini, the gowns which are mini at the front with a long train.
That's very much a
dancing,
signature as well.
or the midriff.
Stephanie Seymour look with short in front and long in the back.
Yeah.
And also the flower. There's a lot of flowery prints that are very much a signature. This collection had millions of pounds worth of jewelry in it by Chopard, and you will probably notice that there are a part of the fluffy shoes that I'm not sure about.
Oh, I love them.
But the models couldn't walk well in them. So
That's
I don't
bad.
think
That is bad.
But there are shoes that they have chains in diamonds, and then
Oh my God.
the jewelry you see around the necks are big diamonds by Chopard. So he also did these young naked midriff things, but covered with a lot of jewelry and diamonds. So it's also a
So
way
are these diamonds, this huge locking chain? Wow.
I read somewhere that there are diamonds on the feet, so it must be those. Yes, I very much like the return of trousers in couture. I think that's very modern take on couture.
Yeah.
We've seen it in Givenchy also. We start seeing it more and more, and I really like that.
Perhaps Meghan Markle will skip off from Givenchy to somebody else because she's good in a trouser.
Yeah, she is good.
I think this would be too much.
Can we stop? Can we go back to the big gowns before the pink one and the black?
There's a Molly ripoff.
There's something about the modern young girls. No, the pink one, the one above. Thank you.
Okay.
It reminds me a little bit of Molly Goddard.
Yeah, so I just said that when it's a Molly ripoff.
Yeah. And I love the fact that I think what Molly Goddard did to Ready to Wear here was making a modern dress for a young girl. So, these dresses that are very recognizable have taken on. And I mean, we can see them more and more now, the alternative to the Balenciaga or Vetements one with flower, etc. And to see these shapes arriving in couture, it's quite a good thing, I think.
But I feel in
Very
my
modern
mind,
take of it.
I would imagine Molly's silhouettes to be couture silhouettes, and that's what's so exciting, is in fact to put them in the other context, whereas this, like, I expect it. I expect to see like opulent, effervescent, huge shapes, whereas not so much in a ready-to-wear context.
So you think that what Molly does is
More interesting.
taking couture instead
Yeah.
of vice versa?
Yeah.
And also
like
the fact
high-low.
that these are accessible.
Yeah,
You know, I could look at a couture show and go, oh my God, I
can't
could
have
live and
that.
die in this, but I could never
Yeah.
in my whole life ever have access to it.
Yeah, it costs like a small apartment.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah. So I thought. So you agree with that? I thought it was quite interesting to see that, and then we can continue with the show. Naomi, thank you. But then again, you know, and then it goes back to the short in front, long in the back, and then his big tools is coming up, which I think it's his signature.
Yeah, and it's always been the amazing scene of every show for the last, I don't know, couple
Yeah, and that image that goes viral and you can't miss anywhere.
The bows also are very much Giambattista Valli is.
I mean, he's not
pink.
bowed. What's great is he's not bowed by the rules of a house. And so perhaps in a way why he jumps around is A, because of the sort of zeitgeist. He is looking at what people want, and perhaps they're not a Molly Goddard customer because they wouldn't be that person, but he's giving them a couture version, which then gives it that gravitas, whatever. But he's not bowed, and I think that couture can get so weighed down by, is it, you know, is it, what would Eve say, or is it Balenciaga enough, or stuff like that, you know. It's
That's
kinda like
Giambattista,
you design-
yeah.
But, you know, it's, he does bring this, the criticisms that I see him get are only for his kind of natural ability for funness and the lightness and the youthfulness on the catwalk. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, you know, many women, you don't have to know about couture to be a couture client. You just be like,
I like that.
I like it and I can afford it. Exactly.
Maybe it's, I can afford it, by the way, I like it. Maybe that comes first. But it's very interesting what you say, because there's very few houses now that are still independent, apart probably from the Italian, and very few in Paris. And what I'm interested in Giambattista is that silently but steadily it's been there and it's grown, you know, without much investment. And to produce this kind of collection, and Deborah, maybe you know better than everybody, that cost a lot of money.
A lot of money.
So these guys.
Could we have a stab at what we think this show? How many looks were there?
How many looks are there?
I don't know, about 40, 30, I don't know.
That's grown exponentially. Whatever.
At least 400,000.
And then that's just for the clothes, not
Oh,
for
I would have said
production,
more.
not
I'd
for
say
the-
more. That's just
I'd say more.
saying 10 grand a dress, and it's probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, just
What exactly
Does
is
the
he spending the money on? Sorry, like,
Sorry?
Well, that's for the sampling of the clothes. So 400 grand on the clothes.
10K just to make it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially,
And it costs that, I can tell you.
Crazy.
Yeah, these are made by expert hands,
Yeah.
one by one, and some takes hundreds of hours.
And
Some use
plus the
400
materials.
meters
Well,
of tool.
yeah,
exactly.
And then
Plus
natural
the-
fabrics.
First of all, you have to make the fabric, the pattern, which is for one piece. I mean, even if you were doing ready-to-wear, you'd have to put a lot of work into the pattern. And that's, you know, a pattern cutter who's going to be very skilled, paid well, doing lots of twirls. Once I worked with Philip Tracy at Chanel on a show, and I spoke to their cutter, and he told me to change one, that was Monsieur Paquito, who was the famous tailor at Chanel. He told me to change one seam on the sleeve. He did 12 twirls to get it perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's couture.
Yeah,
That's
and then
context.
it's not all hand done. Obviously, I think they do sew the seams by machine nowadays, but you know, all the finishing on the edges is done by hand.
The
They don't use
embroideries.
fusing, so all the backings are extra layers of silk which have been sewn on by hand, and maybe you've got extra canvas to get a certain shape. And you've got to do, before you get to that sample, you might have done 3 or 4 or 5 samples.
Okay.
You've maybe even done one full sample in the fabric before you get the one that goes on the catwalk.
That's wild.
So, and then if you were making it for a client, it would cost a minimum of 10 grand to make the dress, a minimum, depending
So
on.
then you've got to put your profit on the top
Yeah.
of that, and why they come out at. Well, would it mark up? Would they do a retail markup 2.75?
Well, it'd have to times
Is
it
it
by
just
at
like
least 3.
do whatever you want in the couture?
Well, I think in couture there are
No, it's not really.
But also, you know, sometimes it's one of a kind.
Yes.
They're made on the body of the client.
Yeah.
So how many fittings? At least 4?
Yes.
Yes.
People flies from all over the world.
Yeah, or you have to fly to them.
Or you have to fly to them, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's,
when they go like that, you jump.
It's a different kind of world. I think it's interesting, especially, and I think it's happening a lot this season, especially for the techniques behind.
Yes.
And those petites mains that are, especially in the ateliers in Paris, are amazing women that you don't know by name and face, but they're artists. I mean, what they do with their
incredible.
hands. It's
Valentino did a
think-
series for their last shows. Everybody is now about, you know, provenance and method and showing it, because it's now showing why it is that expensive, even if it's not.
Well, the Dior show yesterday was very, if you look at it, it's very subdued in color, in shapes, in everything. But then apparently there are some techniques inside those dresses or for a pleat or whatever that are unimaginable, and there are very few people that know how to do it. So couture more and more is that you don't see it, but then when you have the luck to wear it, you can, you know.
I would love that they put some models that were, you know, like McQueen is attempting to do, even in the more couture end of their shows, to put a more normal shaped woman in it. So then you could actually see what couture does, because on these girls, you're like, well, you know, yeah, fine, but what if you do have a couture client that's a size 14? Would it be amazing to see what these dresses do on a size 14 body? Then you go, wow, wow, that is craft.
You see them if you go to Dallas to a private party.
But wouldn't it be great to see it on here? I'd like to see it
I
on
thought
here.
that would be really great to do for a show sometime, where you actually took 10 different women of different shapes and sizes, and then made each sample you made for one of the girls. It would be really incredible to do that.
Yeah, well, couture, you can be size whatever, and they will make it for you, you know. Probably.
I know, but you know, for example, these don't scale up. You know, if a size 14 woman put that on.
But what you would do, but basically, when someone comes to buy the dress, they very rarely are going to just buy that dress. They'll show you the things they like, and then you design something around it. I mean, even when I worked at McQueen, that's how it worked. They would come, they would look at what was on offer, they would pick out the elements that they liked, and then they would have a new design done especially for them, for their figure, taking into whether they wanted a corset or didn't.
I would still like to see it represented in absolutely every show that we see out there, couture, ready to wear everything, a representation of all women.
It's not realistic, though, to do it on, you know...
Why is it not realistic?
Well, I guess you've got to think about fashion shoots and how you're going to market it afterwards. You could do it with some...
Well, to somebody with a size 10, it's not realistic.
Well, maybe you could decide that you wanted to do everything on a size 12 or something, but just jump...
But this is couture. You could choose a model of the season and make it to their size.
You could for one show. I don't know if it would be realistic to do it every season just because of that being such an extra...
Is that because then when you go on to shoot it, that sample has to be sample size? You'd have
Rihanna's
to make
a size 16. She wears Farley.
Rihanna's a size 16?
At the moment, yeah.
16?
Yeah.
And she loves it.
Yeah.
All over social media.
But anyway, what I understand also thinking marketing and what happens with the couture, these looks will be photographed by all the Vogues in the world as of next week. And, you know, it's a fact that models are not a size.
It's chicken and egg, isn't it? Where do you begin?
And you can't make, these are, I mean, as ready to wear, the big houses, they make like 5 sample collection and they fly them to 5 continents for, you know, photographs and press. Couture, no, it's one, because there's a lot of money and work behind everyone. So
I remember shooting.
They have to make them in a way that they can be worn.
But also, I don't know. I remember shooting Florence in the machine for the cover of the Sunday Times Style, and we ordered a Dior couture dress. And when it arrived, it was like literally, it came in like its own golden carriage. It was this insane traveling box, and it had to. I couldn't put it on a rail. It was so heavy. It had to be like over a chair, and it was. And having seen inside it, it was amazing. However, I also see the effect, and like you were saying, chicken and egg, of the effects on somebody like her, who then felt she had to fit into sample size because then nothing would fit her. Her new song said, you know, and obviously fashion, I'm not laying at the feet of fashion about the anorexia, but when I shot her, she was super slim, but like so paranoid about her body. And then you go on and on and on, and none of the dresses fit them, and then that carries on, and you just kind of think, you know, I know this isn't the point of this, but it just would be really nice when you have a control of something like couture, where you can make the dress in the size, that you're representing, you know, women in their truest form as well.
Well, especially that at couture shows, the front row is mainly customers. You know, at the ready-to-wear season, it's buyers and press and some celebrities. Here is mainly customers. There's no buyers because they don't wholesale. There's press and celebrities, but there are huge amount of.
I think with your point is when it's really you have to decide what is a good model size, and then do that. And maybe that model size has to be a bit bigger, but it's just not practical to be making a collection in lots of different sizes.
No, I'm not saying that. I think that you could have one girl,
or two, yeah.
You know, the way that now everybody's casting all sorts of ethnicities. You know, I just think size.
And I think what you're saying is
too.
It's dangerous to have one
body type.
One model size, one
But then I think you have to say that for the whole.
I mean, in this collection, there is a lot that can be worn by anybody.
Yes.
I mean, there are some other collections
looks
where
so good on Zendaya.
It's very short, it's very tight, and it's not a skinny, tall girl. But this is full of
the opposite
that anybody can wear.
The antithesis of the Dior show that has just been, I felt that was, you know, one size only, and that was model size. This, you could hide a million sins inside that and still feel absolutely fabulous.
Exactly.
But then also with the context of couture, like it's totally irrational and insane. So like watching it, I can't imagine anyone in any different body type or anything. If I was a couture customer, I'd probably actually quite like to be sat there going, oh, God, look at all these like crazy things that I guess I can afford, but be this girl that I could never be. Like it's just total fantasy, as opposed to when I see ready-to-wear shows and I'm like, yeah, like, I want to see a normal girl. I want to see a girl who looks like me or my friend, or here, like, I just feel immediately removed.
I just don't think any realm should
fantasy.
be exclusive.
Couture sells, and that's why we went in.
I just mean the market.
4 brands doing couture now. Everybody's doing couture, because even Sonia Rykiel has now launched a couture collection that we saw the other day. So it means there is a big market for it. So it's not that fantasy, it's quite real.
It's a difficult question, because obviously from a point of view you could say, well, it's totally insane and unfair to spend so much money on a piece of clothing and it's not really ethical. On the other hand, then, as Mimma said, there's all these incredible skills, which I think, you know, just from our human story, it's really important to preserve.
I think couture is actually, of all fashion, the most ethical realm.
Yes. Well, it's the most sustainable.
The unfortunate thing is
They're
when
very well paid, these people.
Yeah, and also these are, you know, these are, they've not been flown around the world yet. You know, they're fabrics probably made in France or Italy, you know, and so they don't have a terrible footprint. They're not, most of them, plastic.
No, they're not made by kids underpaid.
Yeah, but also this show, I don't think, doesn't look like it has a grand set, which, unlike we've heard, Chanel has remade Carl's view out of his apartment. You know, I just don't do it in the view. You know, and that's what I find.
Let me talk about that this afternoon.
Gross. I think it's a bit gross.
And also I hear you when you said it's like incredible. People spend that money for a dress.
It doesn't shock me.
But it's not. It's also bought by collectors, and there are many people in the world, men also, that have entire couture.
Wow.
Years of couture in warehouses or whatever special places that are never worn. And
Valli said particularly he does not design for museums or for archives.
Thank God. Like a bottle of
clothes
wine
look better on people.
100 years old. They, you know, it's an art. It's really not a waste of time. I think couture is also what makes fashion relevant.
Yes,
and do you
relevant to wear, but
do you feel like his house? I find it feels very alive. When you look at the front row photos, like you were saying, there's a lot of youth in them. And when you see someone like 21-year-old Zendaya at the Oscars looking very natural in that draped goddess gown.
Zendaya was in Giambattista.
Yeah, she was at this year's Oscars, and it just feels very alive. And therefore, you know, it's an independent brand and hugely successful.
I love this dress.
Yeah, and this dress is in this collection, remade and reseen, but there is a black number that looks very much like this. She was amazing, and she's 20 or 21.
And I think sometimes couture design on younger celebrities it can look like they're wearing their mum's clothes.
Yeah.
And it has an ease to it. That's the modernity we were referencing earlier.
I agree.
An ease to it, perhaps not. I do think still, you know, the really huge tulle skirts that are such a statement. Yesterday when the models were walking, it did look like they were kind of dragging their feet a bit. Maybe it was the shoes, but I don't think there's always the ease to that. But it does make a photo moment.
There is a photo of Rihanna in one of those big dresses, I think, in green.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's the pink one. That pink one, and I think she looks
incredible.
Yeah.
She looks very fresh and very modern, because one thing
This
you
is a
just
long
said,
time ago, though.
It's very true. Sometimes I see these beautiful young actresses on
In
the red
heavy
carpet.
satin
They look
and, you know,
55.
yeah.
They look, you know, like they're mothers. And then you see Rihanna and Giambattista Valli, and
It looks so fresh and so joyful.
I
Yeah.
like that comment that he made, that he tries to keep the lightness in what he's doing. I thought that was a very good point in terms of what one should try and aim for.
And the brand it's 12 years old, or is it 14 years old? And I just think that says a lot as well. If you were a young heiress, you'd love the fact that your grandmother hasn't been
Didn't
wearing
dress it.
it.
You're not literally not weighed down by the baggage of the house again, but it goes back to the fact that he doesn't also have to bow to these crazy signatures that everyone obsesses about. Oh, well, it's not the signature of the house.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a good point of discussion. He's independent, and he said it in the interview I was listening to. I do what I want because nobody's telling me. Then, of course, he probably looks at the numbers, and as he said, he caters to his clientele. But nobody's telling him you have to stick to the DNA or whatever, and the DNA it's him. But I still think that in this collection, he went a little bit far from at the beginning of the collection from who he is, and then it becomes more and more Giambattista Valli, and that's where I like it the most.
Do you think it's
that
a
red
bigger-
look that looks like a parachute behind a sweatpant, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I wonder if I love this like slashed boiler suit. It doesn't look like couture, but I bet when you see it or put it on, it feels like it. I wonder if it was a bigger collection this season, hence why there might be some, not filler, but some things that are maybe pointing us in him in a slightly different direction, and he's going to go in it. Maybe he's just fed up of doing the kind of big Julie things. He knows when somebody really want to kill their signature. You know, and he's trying to maybe point it in a different direction. And at the moment, we're going, oh, what's going on? But then it will become clearer later. You know.
And I think it's a pivotal moment for the brand. They've just last month opened on Sloane Street. They're about to open in South Korea. I never say
South Korea?
Korea, there we go. I always say it slightly wrong. And then I think they're opening in Doha as well. Huge retail expansion.
That's the money that comes from above. I guess.
From investment. And
But also, if you've got these young girls wearing it, you can't just do couture. You have to have shops everywhere because everyone wants to buy it.
exactly.
I don't think that his second line, diffusion line, Jamba, is what does the best in terms of business. I think that people prefer Giambattista for its luxury lines.
I think that's what he's best.
Well, probably
known
makes
I'm not
sense,
surprised,
seeing
exactly.
what he's doing.
But this will not be sold in his stores.
No.
Of course, it can't be.
No, this is made to order. So.
But it is still a branding exercise, as we always say about couture.
That's what I was saying, you know.
Yes.
It makes then your brand relevant because it's like the aspiring thing. And that looks very much like this, his ready-to-wear line.
Yes. And I think that the ready-to-wear wouldn't look the same if he didn't do the couture. I mean, I know from when I worked at McQueen, those couture pieces then informed the rest of the collection. And so, you know, you could go into a store and buy a great pair of trousers with some interesting detail, but he'd have arrived at that because he'd done something extreme on one of the other pieces.
And also in terms of fabrics, sometimes you can use the same, or it's inachievable to use the couture fabrics.
It's probably, you could use maybe something similar, but maybe the couture would have some technique on top of it, or it would be a different sort of weave or something.
You can also, if you're
Sometimes
using a
they would be
print,
similar.
go from a natural to a synthetic, and it translates quite well.
Yeah.
There was a big amount of course now that I want to say it, it doesn't come to me, the flowers that were there. The flowers that you put in potpourri, and they're very scented. Purple,
Lavender, yeah.
sorry. There was a huge amount of lavender. You can see it
Oh,
there.
growing. So that's
And our own Nick Knight was there, and he wrote to me this morning, giving me his take of this collection, and he mentioned the scents. He said the scents were very, very strong, but in a good way. So
Has he got a
I think
fragrance?
that added freshness, and no, I don't think so.
Maybe because he's been spending time in Grasse and he's going to launch the fragrance really soon.
Anyway, apparently it was a very good thing that there was this scent in the air.
Really
It
refreshing,
gave, a fresh atmosphere. And Nick said the first looks were looking very modern. It was a very modern take on couture, and all the girls in front row, they were like, oh my God, I love it. And then towards the end, it was more classic and more Giambattista. But yeah, and it's funny because for me, I like the fact that he has a modern take on it, but I prefer it when he does his classic gowns. I think it's very chic. I think he...
Which is it? So is which is a classic gown to you?
No, when it's more colorful at the end, they're quite big. There's a lot of tulle. I mean, apart from this red one in...
I felt that looked a little bit like Valentino Last Couture.
Oh, really?
Just that there was a lot of that kind of, and I think he did it in moire. I don't think that is moire, but there was that kind of
separates,
feeling. Yeah.
No, my favorite are the tulle ones, you know, like the one that Rihanna was wearing. And here there are a few at the end. I'm not, that's not my favorite thing, short in front.
It's so hard to make tulle sexy, and he really does it.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably what, sort of like where you hook that young audience, where you get to still have that very feminine, very frothy, light aspect, then with like a very long leg, very high heel.
Yeah, because there is a lot of coverage here. There's a lot of modest thing, by the way. That's also a big market, modest, yet modern and appealing fashion. So it's really clever.
Yeah.
By the way, but yeah, it's true that he manages to make tulle sexy and...
Does he do it like a classic wedding dress at the end? He did Jessica Biel's wedding dress, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing it, but he doesn't do that kind of, like Carl still does.
The last time.
Here's the bride, here comes the bride. Well, I'd love to see Jessica Biel's wedding dress.
Yeah, they're really looking for it. Is it a recent one? The Jessica Biel one?
I don't know.
But she married Justin Timberlake. I guess they're still married.
Lottie, I think what you said just where you said the hook that gets people in is the tool, and I think there's no doubt about that. It's the most eye-catching thing. Yeah, look at her dress.
Look at that. That is the dream.
Giambattista
That is
Valli.
the dream.
And yeah, I understand that a young woman wants that.
Yeah, but she's not that young.
But then I think equally the young woman, if the aim is that a couture client, I think they often want a kind of couture wardrobe when they go and see a designer post-show, then fantastic that she can also buy separates there. And if it is his take on that New York street look, then it's dripping in diamonds, and there are diamonds at the ankle and all over the fingers. And that is probably how that kind of woman would see that relaxed aesthetic. So the looks that are less enticing and less eye candy for us, there's probably still
more sales
value in them.
Yes, apparently the first look also, she's got a diamond on every finger. And that's a very modern take of wearing high couture jewelry, because that's not fantasy jewelry or fashion jewelry, that's Chopard in real diamonds. So, you know, it's...
And there's like a toughness to that, which I would never really imagine in a couture context, which is so modern and exciting.
Exactly.
Like
it's a little bit daring.
Yeah, totally.
It's like a what do you call them? The duster?
Knuckle duster. Diamond knuckle duster.
Yeah, about $1 million per head, per
finger.
We should get some detail shots up too, because the models had, obviously they were fake, but little tattoos all on their wrists
with
of
initials.
BV.
I saw them.
Well, if that sounds a bit like the thing that he was talking about, what he doesn't do.
He doesn't like logos.
Logoing.
Yeah.
Naomi, if you go on SHOWstudio
literal
one, you can see in the big pictures the details also of the embroidery in the floral fabrics. At the end, there's some detailing that is really, really beautiful. Where did you see the tattoo?
I think it was on W Magazine. I think. But yeah, I mean, how youthful is that? Little logos all the way down the wrist. It's kind of Not, again, I think very unexpected.
I don't know what you think, but one thing that I really didn't like was the net on the face, and I think that net on the face didn't add modernity, but I think it took away modernity. I don't know what was the intention. I don't know if it wanted to give it like a either costume look or punk, I don't know, but that for me was a fail.
It reminded me of, in a way, of what Road Art have been doing. They've been doing a lot of florals with tulle and net and lots of gypsophilium flowers, and it just felt a little bit towards their sort of territory. But, you know, nobody owns anything.
Look at the lavender.
Oh, that's incredible.
Oh, wow. That's
They walked around.
Really, yeah, a bed of lavender.
And at least that is, you know, that is compostable. So, you know, they're
True, unlike many couture sets.
You know, and mostly like the carpet just goes in the bin, and that's why I'm just like, oh, it just makes me feel uncomfortable.
The Dior, there we go,
There you go.
GBV on the fingers and on the side of the hand.
To me, that looks a bit like, I don't know, that doesn't look authentic.
Love that.
I like
That
it,
is
but
so
it's
naff
like,
and
oh,
so
what do we
cool
do in
and
a
so
couture show
weird.
to make it like street. I know, let's
Oh, totally.
fake tattoos on their fingers.
Totally. But it's almost, that's why it's so brilliant, because it's so absurd.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, what I would like to see more is models with their own tattoos on their fingers, rather than him branding them with his own initials, which apparently he doesn't do.
But you know, their agents, you can't do that. You get like, you have to sign something where you're like, I'm not going to cut my hair, I'm not going to get a tattoo, and like.
No, I just get girls with their own tattoos, not brand him with his name. Do you know what I mean? Being fake.
Yeah.
Cast girls have got interesting ink.
Yeah. Pretty hard though, because again, the girls get like.
Yeah, in agencies
You're not allowed. Like, you can't cut your hair, you can't get any
That's
kind
not
of body.
true anymore. That is not true anymore.
It's less and less true, but they still have a massive control over what you look like, and essentially still tattoos. Like, there is this thing where it's almost like one girl is like, she's the cool girl, she can have like platinum hair, and that's how we brand her, and then you're going to be like the girl with like the new bob or the. So I do think it's quite funny to have made a bunch of fake tats for girls. And with the, you know, the tattoo, the diamond, and then the like
veil,
it's wacky as hell.
Yeah, it's a juxtaposition.
It really is.
The whole show has a lot of juxtaposition. You've got these funereal veils and then tattoos on the wrist.
I think they're funereal or bridal.
I found them a little funereal, maybe because some were black.
Away.
Oh no, I found them more funereal. I'm
really
not
somber.
very sold on the veil. I love the hair a lot, and I think it's a pity when you don't see it. I think that hairstyle a little bit, you know, like here. I think it's fantastic.
Well, I'm not against a veil if it works, but I just don't think they really work because they kind of look like they're stuck on the head and they're not doing something like framing the head or doing something interesting or showcasing the hair or whatever. So I think I agree.
I quite like the relaxed sort of thrown-on-ness of it, because I think if you did start being like, oh, let's all pin it up, let's have like a little hat, you're going to be like, ah, that's exactly where we're trying to move away from in couture. I really don't mind them. I think they're quite...
I've seen this show in movement. I don't know, maybe you can click on one of those Instagrams, but it's very different. Those clothes seen in movements are very different. I had a problem with some of the girls walking with the fluffy shoes. But mostly, I've seen the whole video of the show. It was quite amazing, you know. It's always more beautiful when you see
motion.
it.
And you never see a back shot.
Especially when you have a train like that.
Yeah.
Yes, and you see all the sides of the outfit as well.
You hear them, you forget with couture the expensive sound of that rustle going down. Literally, it's like dropping dollars, you know. You're just like, you're like, wow, making an entrance in every single way.
Yeah. It's quite interesting because, well, we haven't seen it all yet, but I've seen a lot of technique coming into, you know, the picture recently, not only at these couture shows, but also in last men's week, you know, where there's couture for men now and where everybody is now putting the emphasis on the techniques and the tailor and the cuts and the quality. And so it's very interesting because couture has always been there and now they have to make it even more clear to stand above, right?
Yeah.
I'm really surprised. And just say, I just saw a screenshot of the Instagram of, I don't know if that's him personally, but it was only 50,000 followers.
But that's him personally,
That's him
and then the brand
personally.
has 2 million.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah, and it's him personal.
Right.
It's 125,000 I've just seen. What do you think about this, Deborah, about the quality needs and the fact that we need to put the emphasis more and more on...
So that you can actually see it.
Yeah.
I think that is an aspect of it because I think clients want to see what they're paying for, particularly because then maybe, I mean, of course, there's some clients who come from that background and are used to buying couture, but the newer clients, they want to see what they're paying for. They don't want fittings, which is a bit of an issue.
Wow.
What do you mean they don't want to try?
Yeah, well, maybe they want one or two, but they want it done quickly and they don't want to have to spend too much time having fittings. Some do, but quite a lot don't. And that's crazy because that's actually what you're also paying for. But they want you to get it right, but they don't want to do the fittings.
So why bother buying couture?
Well, that's a very good question, I have to say.
Because I suppose
If you've got the money.
guarantee that you'll be the only one wearing it at a party.
Yes, that's
And
true.
you can also guarantee that everyone, it's that thing of, that people will know that it's couture, and certain women like that.
Well, but my question is, do you see that quality of techniques in how do you see it? I mean, you see it in the way it fits, it folds, it moves.
Well, personally, I would see it in the fit and the cut. That would be the thing that I would look for. But
You're not going to see that in a show, though, are you? Because
I can see it.
But in a way, these
But then
girls are like little poles, so you know they're going to look great in anything. The real way, I think, that you would see something fit is if you actually put a body inside it. But
Well, I disagree.
You can tell on a model because if you look at proportion, for example, I mean, it's maybe a bit more difficult like this, but if you're there, you can see the fit and you can see the proportion and you can see how the thing's made just in terms of, you know, if you're doing it traditionally, how the finish of the garment looks, because couture ready-to-wear is a lot kind of crisper and cleaner and flatter, and couture's usually rounder because, you know, you don't press the seams as much. There's all sorts of things, but that would take someone who's probably an expert to see that.
because I think everybody looks for sort of like
Yes,
weight
the
in
embellishment,
beading, you know, all of this sort of
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I would look for the cut and the architecture of the garment, but I think more and more what people are looking for, and probably anyway in history, is the embellishment. They can see where they've spent the money. They can see that they've got some kind of embellishment that you couldn't buy in the shop.
But it makes garments, so sorry, it does make garments. Whenever I've had the Dior piece or the stuff from McQueen, the show stuff, I mean, you literally need, you know, like a trolley for the garment themselves. You know, they're so hard to pick up. And then they become hard to wear and they come, you know, and all of this sort of stuff. And so seeing this lightness in his couture, he is thinking of the client. The client doesn't want to be sweating, like hauling this great big kind of weight along of this dress that they're like, the dress is wearing them. And that's what I enjoy about watching this kind of show. I think, oh my God, you would love to wear that. You wouldn't be going, oh God, this is
And I mean, not all couture is like, I mean, obviously elements of it are, but I'm sure that Madame Grey's couture wasn't like that, for example. I mean, she was an absolute master of her art.
It was incredible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, all those little pleats in jersey sewn in by hand. I mean, it's just incredible. And it was made for real women.
I think he just gets criticised for that a lot. From what I can see about his critics are that it's a bit too light, it's a bit too frivolous to be couture. But I think when I look at it, if you look at some of the
recognized for his couture, even much more than for his ready-to-wear.
But if there are criticisms of the couture, it seems to be that it looks too much like a couture version of ready-to-wear.
It's funny you say that because I read in some of the reviews, not of this one in specific, but the couture that happened in the past 2 days, reviewers more and more, they use the term real couture into brackets, and I'm like, what's real couture as opposed to non-real couture? Like Margiela, John Galliano did something extraordinary last season with these fabrics that were changing under the lights, and it was just amazing. And people are like, yeah, but it doesn't look like couture. So I think why? Because it doesn't have 5-meter trains.
Yeah, I don't think
that
I agree. I don't think that's couture. I think couture is about using the techniques, making it modern if you can.
Iris van Herpen, I mean,
yes,
that's for me the top of modernity in couture, because there's technology, there's research, there's things that are unimaginable. And
yes, how can you take what there was and make it modern?
And Giambo is recognised, or was recognised by the Chambre syndicale far more quickly than, I think it was within, is it 2 seasons?
Immediately,
And that's really rare to get that kind of accolade. So the powers that be that control couture are giving him the seal of approval.
I think what the purist fashionistas are saying is it doesn't have that kind of architecture, or which it probably does, looking at some of the pieces, but I think the fact that it's so eclectic maybe takes away from that a bit, and it's not, the images don't necessarily look as modern. So maybe
thank God we have this, because, you know, when I first studied in fashion, couture was a real snore fest. I was so dull. And this is fabulous. You know, you look at it and it is inspiring. And I'm sure that it is inspiring people to come into the industry at a time when, you know, it's kind of like, you know, the industry, you could be with Brexit and stuff like that, we're at a risk. I know this is not the same level, but we still have thousands of students going through fashion schools. And if we don't have a kind of fresher take on it, then it's like, well, we're just going to be doing the same thing. Yeah.
That's one of the things he did best, was really bringing young, you know, people that could afford it to couture.
Yes, so maybe I'm not quite right in saying not looking modern enough. Maybe I'm talking about the architecture, because obviously it's modern, young people are buying it, which is one of the great
So what do you mean by the architecture? Maybe not.
I'm not explaining myself very well.
It's not a rhetoric question. I really don't understand.
You mean the proportions and the silhouette?
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm talking about. The silhouettes, the proportions, and the kind of.
But that's what couture was known for. When you say architecture, I think you mean like the build of the garment, i.e., you know, what's kind of going on in it and how the proportions change, rather than being a dress. It's like, well, how do you make these feats of kind of fantasy by the architecture? Is that what you mean?
I feel like, just, I don't know so much about couture, but just as like someone who loves clothes, you look at them and I don't really consider couture so much. In my head, I'm like, oh God, like a bunch of long dresses, like snore. I'm looking at this and it's sexy and it's exciting, and you can imagine like whacking that dress off and on and like smashing into a club and like having a really great time, which I never would associate with couture dressing. And maybe in terms of architecture, just that you can see so much skin, it's like, where is it? But like you're saying, it's probably internal, like in corsets, or in, but it sort of probably takes a moment of adjustment, whereas you would usually immediately see the craftsmanship in these like long flowing, you know, which I guess you see also. But
and when it comes
it's
to
so
the
revealing.
It feels like it's the perfect amount in the right place.
Yes.
There's a video of him in the studio for the New York Times. Vanessa Friedman did it. And he says he does all the embellishment, and he pins it all himself.
Yeah, himself.
And he said it's like a meditative moment when everyone's running around the show. And I really loved that idea of the hecticness, the craziness around him, and then him meditatively pinning the embellishment and making sure it's all in the right place. And it's not dripping in sequins.
Yes.
That's heavy, as you said.
Yes, exactly.
This is 400 meters of tulle that we see per dress.
Is this collection?
Silk, a lot of tulle.
Silk tulle is quite light.
So there's the heaviness.
So heavy. That must be so heavy.
Anyhow, if you have the money to buy that, maybe you bear the weight.
Yeah.
So we liked it. We're happy
Very much.
It's worked this season.
Very much.
I think I feel the same way as you do. I think it was, you know, there are a couple of real hits. There's a couple of things that I'm like, but you know, it's kind of like, well, I think that's to his customer base, and maybe that just means he's growing up, you know.
Yeah, and he's doing well, and I think that's all that matters. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later with Chanel. Bye.